First, thanks to all of you for coming out today. The issue of border security has been one I've been working on for years, first in Congress, then on the 9/11 Commission, where I've been dealing for years with the issue of the nexus between counterterrorism and national security and border security. Currently, as you know, I'm at the Center for Immigration Studies, and this film today feels to me like a culmination of many years of dealing with government agencies and conducting all varieties of investigations. So I am actually really proud of it, but I couldn't have done any of it without some really great people around me. So I just want to take a minute to thank folks. First, I want to thank our Center's Executive Director, Mark Krikorian, for supporting me in the project. It's taken a lot of effort, and in DC, where quick hits are kind of the flavor of the day, he's given me the leeway to spend an awful lot of time on this, and so thank you, Mark. Second, I want to thank Representative Bishop and his office, who sort of turned me on to this issue to begin with, of the federal lands and federal law enforcement. Your leadership, sir, on this issue, I look forward to continuing to follow it and appreciate what you've done so far. A huge special thank you to behind camera number one, Mr. Brian Griffith, who was my partner on this. He did all the video production, came up with a lot of great ideas, produced those great graphics for us, and a lot of late nights and a lot of weekends. So thank you, Brian. To secureborderintel.org, who provided the really powerful footage, the Nogales thermal cameras, as well as the Casa Grande guns and drugs. That leadership is with us on phone today, and you'll hear from him after me. And also the source for our Coronado footage at the front of the film, borderinvasionpics.com, who also provided the footage for the Hidden Cameras 1 video, if you've seen that one. And to my friend Buddy Spear, who won Best Guitarist in the region last year, he did all the music composition and editing. So let me begin with a bit of a backstory of how this mini documentary came about. I began making this series of films last year after becoming increasingly alarmed at the powerful disconnect evolving here in Washington between political expediency on immigration and the reality of the border. At that time, there was this fermenting discussion of amnesty, and hand in hand with that, this blanket appraisal by the Secretary of Homeland Security and then our president that our border was secure. Terrorism, if you will recall, was termed a man-made disaster. In answers to reporters' questions, there was an admission that no new fencing on the southern border would be constructed, nor was there going to be a replacement program for the Secure Border Initiative. There were reduced numbers of Border Patrol agents and budgets, and 5 times the president ignored requests by Governor Brewer of Arizona for National Guard presence. Meanwhile, the hidden camera sources I was developing were showing me a really different reality. I saw this strange story emerging and a contradiction of sorts. Why didn't we see more Border Patrol on the federal lands in the footage when they knew that the illegal trails were there? As you saw at the front of the film, that Department of Interior report was from 2001. They knew the trails were there and they knew they were growing. And how could it be that the federal land seemed less protected by federal law enforcement than private property? It all seemed counterintuitive. Something, to me, was wrong. There was an underlying story to borders that wasn't being told, questions that hadn't been asked that needed to be. I learned more from the House Natural Resources Committee staff from their travels out there and their interaction with the Department of Interior, and it seemed to me that the problem of securing our borders wasn't just resources, but it also had something to do with who owned the land. I began talking to agents in the field, and at that point, I had enough to produce Hidden Cameras 1, and that's what we did. But from my point of view, being an investigator by nature, it wasn't enough. I needed to know more, and I decided to conduct some Freedom of Information Act requests. FOIAs didn't seem like a big deal to me, honestly. I'd done extensive oversight of the Legacy Immigration and Naturalization Service and the FBI while on the Senate Judiciary Subcommittee on Terrorism and Technology prior to 9/11, investigating foreign terrorist activity in the U.S. I dealt with government agencies trying not to tell me things. And while on the 9/11 Commission as Border Counsel, I was right in the middle of many document fights and interview fights and had been privileged enough to be able to figure out that the 20th hijacker slated for 9/11 was actually kept out of our country by an astute border inspector in Orlando in August of 2001. I figured I could handle a bunch of FOIA requests, but I never had to deal with being outright ignored for months with Freedom of Information Act requests until I decided to follow up on questions raised by the first Hidden Cameras video. I sent out a series of FOIAs in August of 2009, a month after our Hidden Cameras 1 was released. I have copies of them out front if anybody is interested in them. I received nothing for months despite follow-ups and unreturned phone calls. In the end, ironically, some of the best material I got was from an agency within the Department of Interior. This was so despite the fact that the agency had been told to stand down by the Secretary's office and not answer my request. I argued to the agency that they were required to attend to the request by law no matter what the Secretary's office said. They did so, and as you saw in the video, I received the 2004 Oregon Pipe National Monument PowerPoint that's about 140 slides. I also received a very similar PowerPoint on Buenos Aires National Wildlife Refuge, which is between Oregon Pipe and Nogales, and also another one on Coronado. These together led me to the conclusions that you saw in the film. However, the most unbelievable response I got was from the Secretary of Interior's office itself, who, after 8 months of ignoring me, sent me a schedule of fees to simply begin conducting searches. It sounds a little bit like the mitigation fees that the Border Patrol has to pay. And they weren't cheap either. And as to the Immigration Service, I was refused anything specific to the Border Patrol and wasn't even given special interest alien apprehensions, which, if you deal with terrorism, is a statistic you want to know, which back in 2005, 2006, that stuff was public information.